He's going to catch us! Keep running!
Bloody brambles! So I was just thinking, like, why does this hurt so much? Why is it that when a character in the game, they die, and that stays with you for days? Meanwhile, real world death, it often feels distant, it can feel abstract, it can feel hard to fully process it. So I guess my question is, why does something fictional sometimes feel more real? I think the difference is regarding distance versus immersion. In real life, death is often experienced at a distance. News, stories, secondhand information. You're seldom there when the person actually dies. You probably just receive it after the fact. It's hard to emotionally attach to scale. Whereas in games, you're present. You move with the character, you protect the character, you make decisions that affect them. So I think the key idea and key takeaway is that games don't just show you death, they make you participate in the life before it. And it's because of that interactivity that you feel responsible as the gamer. In games, death often feels like you're at fault. You didn't act fast enough. You made the wrong choice. You couldn't protect them. Maybe you did the wrong NPC quest line, and that creates guilt, that creates regret, that creates a sort of emotional ownership over that character and over that situation. But the contrast is that in the real world, death is rarely within your control. You could say goodbye to your mom when she goes off to work and then she gets in a car accident, and then, what was really the point in that? Because you had no control over that. Whereas in a game, you're controlling all these factors are working together in tandem. So there's a degree of responsibility and more of a closeness that can be associated with it. So I think in games, you don't just witness loss, you feel accountable for it because of the hand that you played in it. Now, regarding the subject matter of this video, A Plague Tale: Innocence and Requiem, these games, they build emotional connection through slow, character-driven storytelling where there's a protective relationship between siblings and there's constant vulnerability. There's seldom time for you to rest, recuperate, to actually just walk and smell the roses, so to speak. You spend hours keeping them alive, escaping danger, managing limited resources, and the world is brutal. There's disease, there's war, innocence is constantly under threat. You have a little brother, as you're playing as Amicia, the protagonist, and he's a child. And he is grappling with things that he does not fully understand, and not even that his sister fully understands. So it becomes near impossible to even preserve that childhood innocence that he has just by virtue of being a younger person. And your role is a protector. You're not an observer. You're not someone who can just passively exist in this world as you guys just try to figure out what's wrong with him. No, there's an actual tangible problem with your brother, being Hugo. So when loss happens, or it feels inevitable, it doesn't feel like a cutscene. It feels like something you were trying to stop. So as we look ahead towards the upcoming title that's supposed to release this year, I think, Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy, this upcoming game, it continues the emotional direction that has a focus on legacy, memory, and consequences to your actions and decisions, and it expands on the psychological weight of survival and just trying to stay alive. So I expect that there will be deeper emotional bonds. There will be more morally complex decisions. There will be a stronger sense that every moment matters. And so I just think to ask myself, will this game push players even further into emotional responsibility? When you're playing through A Plague Tale: Innocence and A Plague Tale: Requiem, you just feel responsible for this young child. And when something happens to him, or he gets captured, or he's going under his episodes, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't played the game, and mind you, you really need to. Will you feel as emotionally tied and responsive to that as you did in these prior games once A Plague Tale Legacy comes out? And it just makes me wonder, can this game make loss feel unavoidable, but it'll still feel personal at the same time? Now, potentially, I think the real reason why fictional death can feel as prevalent as real death is that there's controlled emotion, but there's also real chaos. A game can give you something that real life doesn't. A game can give you structure. A game can give you foreshadowing and precipitation and a buildup. A game can give you closure. You understand that who the character is. You understand why they matter. You understand what led to their death, what led to their present circumstances, because you progress with them as the narrative unfolded. Whereas in real life, it can be sudden, it can be unpredictable, and it often falls unresolved. You often are left wondering what happened, and you are deprived of that closure that you are more likely to get in a video game. So emotional death, it feels clearer, it feels sharper, and it's more easy to process it emotionally. You know what sucked to see in the game? It was when Joel died in The Last of Us Part 2. In Part 1, you play as Joel and Ellie, this heartrending journey, this father-daughter akin relationship. And if you know the impact that meeting Ellie had on Joel and how he had a daughter prior to her and how Ellie sort of adopts this role of becoming his daughter, then you already feel that emotional attachment and that emotional weight that stemmed from that heading into the new game. And when you know, when you knew how part 1 ended going into that, and you know what Joel said, what he told Ellie versus what he actually did, and then to see what happened while they were still unresolved tensions between them, that shit hurt. Like, that sucks. One of the greatest video game characters, my favorite video game story all time, and to see that happen to him, that sucked. But you know what didn't suck is the fact that I had closure to it. I knew what he did in the game prior. I knew that that would eventually probably come back to bite him in the behind in some way, shape, or form. And just so happened that that's exactly what happened when Abby kills him. Because every decision you make, there's a reverberation. Little did he know that doctor he murdered also had an Ellie. He also had a daughter. And then that daughter grew up realizing what had happened to her father. And then that came back and Joel paid for it times 10. And it just created this cycle of vengeance as part 2 continues to progress its narrative. Now, conversely, let's switch that onto real life. Let's say Abby never knew who killed her father. Let's say she just walks in, no clues, no anything. Let's say she's on the outside looking in and she has no intimate details to figure out as to what actually transpired. Her father is just gone. And I think that's why real life death can feel like there's a lack of closure and that there's nothing that you can even do about the situation or to better your circumstances in the wake of that person's death. So to sum up the comparison and the contrast between both death in real life and death fictionally is that fictionally you at least have closure, you at least have some degree of control over what's going to happen because you control the characters. And let's say you're playing the game again, you have replayability on your side where you know what's going to happen, so it hurts less and less each playthrough you do. Whereas in real life, there's no take backsies, there's no replaying. Once this happens, that's it. And if you weren't there to experience it firsthand, you will never have the ultimate degree of closure that can actually be afforded to you, whereas you can acquire that in a game. You know another example of this? You guys know in God of War Ragnarok, where Brock dies? Well, I tell you. And it's the fact that it's a character that you tried to protect and someone who you would view who is completely removed from the physical aspect of the conflict or of the strife in the game. Of course, they're helping the heroes, Kratos, Atreus, Freya. They're helping, but you would view them as someone who's not actively involved in the conflict in and of itself. He helped with procuring weapons, with resource gathering, with all these other things, with blacksmithing, but he wasn't the fighter. And it was a loss that felt personal because of the attachment that you have taken to this character from the first God of War game, God of War 2018. And to carry that into this and then he dies, you just have to ask yourself, well, why did it even hit me? I didn't control Brock, but at the same time, I controlled the character who was tied to Brock. It made it seem as if the time I invested into Kratos was time that was indirectly invested into Brock because Brock helped with bettering his Leviathan axe, the Blades of Chaos, with just humor and comedic relief in the game. He helped with these things. It also makes you question things such as the control that you thought you had. I'm playing as this demigod who is all powerful, but I couldn't foresee that Odin had disguised himself as someone this entire time. He tricked everybody. And then because of that, Brock ends up dying. And I actually think Kratos and Brock were actually beginning to have some sort of relationship besides just blacksmith and customer while they're going to get the drop in your spear and the dialogue and you open up more to Brock and you find out more about him. There was so much more potential for depth. And I'm not mad at them for killing him off. It just makes the story better. It's a furtherance of the story, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect you any less. Now, to contrast that with real life, I think different emotions can show up because in the game, this isn't someone that you're actively controlling. Much like in real life, how the person who dies isn't someone you're actually controlling. But in the game, that's at least something that you know you can do. There's at least something that you know you can do to improve what happens next. You know, or I can get more weapons, I can get stronger, I can do this. Whereas in real life, I think people feel far more incentivized to just give up on themselves because you don't have a controller that can dictate what is going to happen next. You have a body and you have a mind, and most people, quite frankly, I don't think that they'll have the desire to want to keep going afterwards. And if they do keep going, will it be to the best of their ability? So all these things play a role in it. It was never just a game. These characters aren't real, I know that, but your experience with them is. Games don't just replace real emotion, they focus it, they hone it, they make it more concise and concentrated. Maybe we don't care more about fictional death. Maybe games just give us the time and space to actually feel it. It wasn't real, but what you felt was. Games don't make death more important. They make it impossible to ignore, impossible to shun it away. Maybe the difference isn't the loss, it's the connection. I'm Harlem. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.